Good afternoon. My name is Jay Kasi. I'm a product manager for SOA, and in particular, I'm a product manager for a component of SOA called Enterprise Scheduler Service. And today I'm going to talk about Enterprise Scheduler Service. Enterprise Scheduler Service is a new component that got introduced in SOA Suite in 12.1.3, and I shall basically give you a brief overview of Enterprise Scheduling Service. Many applications do a lot of processing in the background or do a lot of processing on schedule, and integration applications are no exceptions. So for example, in the case of Fusion apps, there are a large number of jobs which are actually executed in the background and is not executed interactively. And in the case of SOA, I know of many customers who actually want to schedule SOA composites or want to schedule adapter activation and deactivation at specific times. That is the purpose of Enterprise Scheduler, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But scheduling is a key task in many IT departments, and it helps IT increase productivity and reduce costs and to do it on schedule automatically. Enterprise Scheduling Service. The formal name for Enterprise Scheduler Service is Oracle Enterprise Scheduler, and it supports recurring schedules. It supports job dependencies and incompatibilities. For example, you can say that execute this job before that job. So you can run jobs in sequence, or you can define incompatibility saying a payroll job should not execute at the same time as a salary increase job. So you can basically define rules like that, and they won't run at precisely the same time. You can have parallel execution of sub-jobs where you can define, for example, a large number of employees into sub-jobs, one for each letter of the alphabet. Throttling and prioritization is another use case for Enterprise Scheduler, where you don't want to have more than 50 financial jobs running at any point in time, and it should not wait, and CRM jobs should not wait for 5,000 backed up financial jobs. So that's the priority, and throttling is where you limit the total concurrency of the job to a predetermined value. And you can also target jobs to specific machines. Typically a job runs anywhere in the cluster, which is the ESS cluster, but you can also say run this job only on this particular managed server in the cluster. There are two key roles as far as ESS is concerned. One is the developer role, and the developer defines hosting applications or client applications, which is not supported for SOA, but is something that they could do. In the case of SOA, SOA is the client application and the hosting application is pre-deployed. They can do job implementations, for example, a SOA composite that you want to schedule. They define the job definition or job set definition or define incompatibilities. So they define metadata using Enterprise Manager Fusion Middleware Control. Administrators are using Enterprise Manager to define schedules, submit jobs, monitor jobs, and recover stuck jobs or cancel, resume, stop jobs. So that is the kind of things that an administrator does. In the case of SOA, the focus of 12C is a standalone ESS embeddable in Fusion middleware, and SOA and MFT and OSP are the first three examples of where ESS is embedded in a Fusion middleware product, and there may be other products that embed ESS in the future. So what does ESS add to SOA? It is used for scheduling synchronous or asynchronous web services, which are proxy services which are synchronous, or SOA composites which are synchronous or asynchronous, and secure with OWSM. So the composite has to have a web service interface, or the proxy service has to have a web service interface, and it can schedule file transfers with MFT using the MFT UI. You can schedule activate and deactivate of adapters from SOA EM. You can schedule bulk recovery of SOA instances from the SOA EM console. So for example, if a large number of instances are piled up in the Aero Hospital, instead of recovering them manually one by one, you can do a bulk recovery and recover all of them in one shot. And ESS is used in the background to do this background processing. Schedule bulk notification in SOA. So for example, if you want to periodically get notified when instances show up in the Aero Hospital, instead of having every instance that show up in the Aero Hospital generating an alert, you can have alert come at periodic times, like every 15 minutes, and email is sent to you, and then you can look at the instances which actually got put in the Aero Hospital. You can schedule ESS jobs from Beeple. So for example, if you want to orchestrate a bunch of jobs, you can do that with Beeple. And there's JDEV support to make it easy. There's sophisticated management of scheduled job with ESS EM. And you can also schedule scripts, synchronous, asynchronous external web services from ESS EM, not just SOA composites and OSP proxy services. So a typical integration with ESS, you use the pre-deployed ESS native hosting app, so you don't have to worry about that, but there is already a pre-deployed hosting app, so that is automatically taken care of for you, so you don't have to develop a custom app. And the only interaction you have with ESS is through Enterprise Manager Fusion Middleware Control or through WLST commands, and you don't actually do programming in Java or do anything like that with ESS. So the internal jobs in SOA, like bulk recovery and fault notification, are implemented using EJBs. So the job implementation is the EJB that ESS invokes on schedule, and you can do job submittal and statuses via SOA EM. So you can submit a job from SOA EM. So there are multiple steps to creating a job. You first create a job definition that tells ESS where the job is and what its parameters are. Then you go ahead and submit the job, and when you submit the job, you point to the job definition and you give a schedule, and the job would execute based on that schedule. So you can submit the job from SOA EM which invokes SOA mbeans, which use ESS runtime APIs. So that's basically how out-of-the-box jobs in SOA are submitted. Job metadata typically in SOA is dynamically created for SOA internal jobs. So the first time you actually do, for example, bulk recovery, it will automatically create the job definition for you. Schedule metadata is created by the user using ESS EM. So you go to ESS EM and you define schedule metadata, and you have to predefine the schedule metadata for fault notification and for adapter activate and deactivate. And ESS server may be co-located with SOA or in a separate server or cluster. There are two different topologies that we support, where ESS server is co-located with a SOA in the SOA cluster, or ESS can be deployed to a separate cluster. So we don't recommend at this point in time using the ESS APIs. So we should limit ourselves, customers should limit themselves to scheduling web services or adapter activate, deactivate, fault notification, or bulk fault recovery, or scripts, or submit jobs from Beeple, but not really use the APIs that ESS exposes. At this point in time, that's not supported for SOA customers. So in terms of licensing, SOA includes a full use license for ESS, while Service Bus and MFT uses a limited use license for ESS, where in the case of Service Bus and MFT, you are limited to only schedule proxy services or internal service job implementations in MFT and Service Bus. And in the case of MFT, ESS EM is not included in the MFT installer. So installation and deployment, ESS is automatically installed as part of SOA, OSB, and MFT. and ESS deployment is optional in SOA Service Bus but required in MFT. ESS only supports WebLogic and Oracle DB. So this is a picture of the architecture of ESS. You have on the left hand side EJB, and you can submit jobs using APIs, and that's what SOA Infra does. It uses the ESS APIs to submit jobs and to query status of jobs. And in the case of web service, there's another interface called a web service interface for submitting jobs, and SOA Composite and JDeveloper has tooling to invoke the web service to submit a job to ESS from Beeple. So those are the two main ways you submit jobs for ESS. And on the right hand side are the job implementations, which can be a SOA Composite, could be OSP proxy service, or it could be an internal EJB in SOA, like for example for bulk recovery or fault notification or adapter activate and deactivate. There are already predefined EJBs in SOA, and ESS invokes those at the scheduled time. So these are some of the concepts. A job type is the type of job. It can be a PLSQL job or a web service job or a Java job or whatever. Or it can be a web service job or a EJB job. So those are all different types of jobs. In other words, job implementations can be in a variety of different languages, and each job type indicates the implementation language of the job. Job definition indicates the parameters of the job and where the job is located. For example, if it's a web service, it indicates the URL of the web service. And job set is for executing a set of jobs in sequence or in parallel. But if you want to execute jobs in sequence, the recommended way in the case of SOA is to use Beeple to orchestrate jobs, because Beeple is a more powerful language for orchestration than job sets. Incompatibilities is where you don't want two jobs to execute at the same time because they have internal dependencies. A schedule is a piece of metadata that indicates a time when you want the job to execute or a recurrence. And work shift specialization, work assignment, and request processor are used for controlling the resources available when the job executes. So there is a scheduled job. At the scheduled time, the job will execute, and then based on the work shift, work assignment, specialization, and request processor configuration, it will indicate which managed server it should actually run in, and how many threads are available for running the job, and whether there's throttling for asynchronous jobs in terms of max concurrency of asynchronous jobs and stuff like that. So those are all controlled by work shift specialization, work assignment, and request processor. So this is a picture of all the various pieces: request processor, work assignments, work shift specialization, stuff like that. And this is a picture of the states that a job goes through as it goes from submission to execution. As soon as you submit the job, it goes to wait state until the scheduled time arrives, at which point in time it gets to ready state. Then resources are allocated for the job, like for example threads and stuff like that. And the job then, once the resources have been successfully allocated for the job, it executes and is in running state, and it ends in a warning state, success state, or error state. And if you basically have an incompatible job running at the time that the job is ready to execute, it goes into a block state, and when the incompatibility job completes, then it goes back to a ready state. So these are some of the manuals for ESS: a dev guide, admin guide, and these are the 1213 documentation for ESS. And you can look at this and get more in-depth information about ESS. But as I said, all of ESS is not available for SOA customers. It is not supported for SOA customers to use all of ESS. And we, for example, use of APIs in ESS, except for the web service APIs, is not supported for SOA customers. So SOA customers will be interacting with ESS only through EM or through WLST commands. Thank you very much. I'm going to now do a short demo and to show you how you can schedule a composite. I'm going to now demonstrate invoking a SOA composite on schedule using ESS. The SOA composite has already been defined. It's called Project 1. Project 1 is got a web service interface that invokes a beeper process. And then it's a synchronous web service interface invoking a beeper process. I've already, so I'm going to basically first do a job definition creation. So job metadata, I create a job. By the way, I come to the screen for ESS by clicking on ESS app on the left hand side of the screen. So if I click on ESS app, I see this particular screen. So I pull down scheduling services, pick job metadata, pick job definition, and then I give a name for the job definition, and then I do a create, and then I give a name for the job definition. And then I must put it in the package /oracle/app/ess/custom/SOA. It must be in that package. And then I pick a job type, which is synchronous web service job type. So I basically click synchronous web service job type. And I'm defining the job definition here. I'm going to create one parameter for the job called category. With the initial value of 10. And then I'm going to click on this radio button here, select web service. So I'm going to basically click on this, and then I'm going to enter the WSDL here, and then press the go button. And then I make this a SOA web service, click on the service, click on the port type, click on the operation, and in the payload, this is the XML payload for the web service, the SOA composite web service. And I'm going to take the parameter value. I created a parameter called category for the job. Jobs can have a bunch of parameters, and the parameters are key value pairs. So I defined a parameter called category, and I'm going to plug in the parameter value into the category element of the XML message. So I'm going to say $. ESS underbar REQ : category. So that's the name of the category. And then that's it. I press OK. And I press OK here. So I would have created a job definition called test my job, which is a synchronous web service job type, and I gave the URL of the WSDL. And then I have one parameter which I plug into the XML payload, and that's it. That's my job. Now I'm going to submit this job. So I'm going to go to job request, submit job request, and I pick the job definition, test my job, and then here is my schedule, and I can use I can specify a schedule. I can give any kind of schedule I want, a frequency of once or a frequency of yearly, for example, which would be a complex schedule. But here I'm going to basically say I'm going to execute this once right now. I'm going to execute it right now once. So that's a schedule I picked, and I'm going to change the category value to 20. So and I'm going to submit this job. So now I come to the request detail page, and the request detail page tells you the status of the job, and right now it's in wait state. And when I do a refresh, it's in ready state now, and then I do a refresh, and it goes to succeeded state. And then here is a job output, so I click on the job output, and I see the job output, which is the response message from the web service. And here's the response message from the web service. So you see the category 20, so that's the response message. And one last thing I want to show you is in the job definition screen. So I go back to the job definition screen, and I pick the test my job. If I want to attach a OWSM policies, you can attach a OWSM policies to secure the web service. So I can say attach OWSM policy, and then I can say attach detach. And then I can pick the web service policy that I want, and I attach it or detach it depending on what I want to do. So that's how you secure the web service. That's it. Thank you.